Hey everyone, my name is Zach. I'm a 23-year-old competitive boulderer from Canada, currently living in Montreal. Welcome back to the COMPCLIMB training series, where I record most of my training, provide in-depth analysis of every session, and just chat about climbing with an emphasis on competition. So here we are at Bloc, and we are being joined by Guy and Kilter MCNAMEES Me. After our campus session on the spray wall at Bloc shop in the last episode, we lined up a session of bouldering at Bloc, and so now here we are. And I was excited for this session. Obviously we get to climb with these guys again, which is just always a blast. Obviously they're only here so they're here in Montreal for a month, and they're leaving on April 4th, I think. And for those who maybe don't realize that these guys don't live here because they've been in the videos a lot recently, Guy and Kilter are from BC. So I think they live in Vancouver, and they are just visiting Montreal for a month for some training before the World Cup start. So when these guys fly out to the China World Cup on April 4th, I think they're gonna go back home to BC and then not come back to Montreal until whenever the next time they visit will be. So anyway, I really gotta milk the training sessions that I'm getting with them. It is so valuable to train with these guys. We are like neck and neck. We always go like tit for tat in our training sessions and just are the perfect trio to like push each other to our limits. And so it's been super valuable for me to train with these guys, and I got to take advantage of it while it lasts, because it is only temporary. Obviously I live all the way out east in Canada and they live all the way out west, so we don't get to train all the time. So we got just a full classic boulder session at Bloc with the MCNAMEES. Should be exciting. And we are starting on this red boulder, a very nice pinch line. This one is super quality. Just your classic, like, beautiful boulder at Bloc. And as you can see, I am struggling with it quite a lot more than the MCNAMEES are. Kilter flashed this boulder, and Guy almost flashed it, and then he like slipped once, and I think he's about to put it down now on his third attempt. So something interesting was actually happening during the session. I started off feeling probably like a 6 out of 10. I'm going to continue along with my rating system for like how I am feeling in terms of strength. So I started off the session feeling like 6 out of 10 and being like, crap. How am I going to have like a good session with these guys? I don't have it right now. And it was like quite evident on this pinch boulder. I just felt like I could do nothing on it. And the MCNAMEES made it look super easy. Oh, and this is Sabrina, by the way. She is part of the Bloc team, and she is super strong. And we bumped into her at the gym today, and she was climbing with us. But yeah, like, I'm just like flailing on these pinches. I felt like I was just like a fish or something, and I couldn't hold these holds. And I was a bit bummed that the session seemed like it may be just me trailing behind the MCNAMEES the whole time. But then what happened was I actually started to feel quite a lot better as we went along through the session. So as you can see, we're moving on to another boulder here, and I probably put like 3 or 4 tries on the red pinches, and I am continuing along with my newly adopted good habit of not getting caught up in a boulder and trying it way too many times, and trying to like force ascend in that instance, and really trying to control myself, only put a couple of tries on a boulder, move on to something else, and then maybe I can come back and revisit that boulder. Or maybe I don't. I just have to not get so caught up in sending boulders. And I've been really getting good at putting it into practice in the last week or so. So, and especially climbing with the MCNAMEES, like I want to milk the value of training with them. And if I just stay behind and keep trying the red boulder, then I don't get to try the boulders that they're trying and really get that motivational effect of working a boulder with others. So here we are trying this new boulder. This is a comp set, and this one felt like it was around V10. As you can see, me and Guy are doing some different better than Kinder is here. He actually uses this left slopey pinch above the start hold, and I felt it on my first attempt, and it was very, very bad. I was talking about in the last episode, the MCNAMEES can just use crazy slopers. Like their sloper strength is just so good. So that hold probably felt like a bucket for Kinder. And meanwhile, I'm like, I just have to skip it and jump all the way to the crimp. And here we got Kinder getting a nice top of the yellow. He was the first to put it down. So now it's up to me and Guy. And interestingly enough, Guy also found the sloper, the second sloper, quite hard to use. And so he skips it like I do. And it's interesting because while the MCNAMEES obviously do have their own strengths and weaknesses compared to one another, usually when it comes to like slopers and pinches, from what I've seen, they always like both will do well on it. Like they'll both really like to grab a hold and be good at it. So it's interesting that Guy didn't like to use the second hold and Kinder did. And then we got Guy getting a send train on this boulder with Kinder. So now here I am lagging behind again. I want to do my best to keep up with these guys. It's always like a super nice competitiveness that we have in training together. Like I always want to do my best to keep up with them, but I'm never going to be like mad if I'm falling behind or something. So here I am trying to match the finish hold here. I want to keep up with the MCNAMEES in this session. You see I'm getting an intense dose of the shakes with my left leg. So that foothold is super blocked by like the wall. And I just felt like I was standing on nothing and I could not match that finish hold. And the MCNAMEES just like made it look pretty casual, which was crazy. So I wasn't too upset. I got to the finish on that climb and I was like, okay, I could walk away from this boulder now. I still needed to try and catch up to the MCNAMEES, but at least I wasn't too far behind. So now we are moving on to this purple boulder, which you may recognize from a couple episodes ago. So I was expecting these guys to flash this boulder. This is obviously right up their alley. We have this bad sloper at the start, and then we're just moving into a campus move. And the theme of the last episode was that these guys are like, their biggest strength, in my opinion, is campusing on slopers. So I was like expecting this to go very quickly for them. And as you can see, they're already like quite close. And even I'm making a bit of progress. If you remember when I was first trying this boulder, I could barely even do anything. Like it was kind of really tricky for me to even hang on the start hold and pull off of it. And I was saying in that day that I wasn't feeling so sticky. And I could tell I just shouldn't be trying that boulder on such a slippy feeling day. Oh, and here's me taking like a nice death-defying fall there at the end. But yeah, today on this session, I actually felt like a lot stickier. And so it was kind of like a good like confirmation that I really was like just really slippy on that first day I was trying the boulder, because I could hang off this start hold obviously, and now I'm getting even closer to the point where I'm like kind of touching the last purple hold. I'm not as close as the MCNAMEES, like they could stick at any try at this point, but I'm at least at the point where I can feel myself working through this campus paddle. So that was kind of cool, that I basically got some good confirmation of a new training tactic that I think is really important for me to start implementing, which is the idea that I should not try to force sticky based boulders, especially at a time where I'm not feeling sticky, right? So if I'm having a day where I can tell my skin is just a bit greasier, or I don't have that like super optimal friction, why am I going to project a super sticky based boulder? Like, it just doesn't make sense. But it's taken me a while to kind of get that through my head, and sometimes I just try to force them. So it was good confirmation today that, you know, I came back to this boulder and I felt a lot stickier, and so I could actually work it for real. No send, but definitely felt some progress. And so here I am trying this boulder again, and look at the difference from my first few attempts on this session. This was sort of the moment I realized, like, whoa, okay, I kind of was just off to a bad start in the session, and I started to feel better as we went. And I'd say I probably moved up to like a 7 out of 10 in terms of feeling in like the last half of this session. And I don't really know why that is. I think, well, you know what? No, I think I do know why it is. Especially for myself, and I'm sure anyone that does like intense training and like is on like a strict program where you're constantly feeling sore, and the way you feel in terms of session like fluctuates quite a bit. What I find also fluctuates is some days it just takes longer for your body to warm up and to really get to its 100% peak of how you're going to be feeling in a session. So I think this session, it just took me like, let's say 30 minutes to get to feeling like, okay, this is the peak of how I'm going to be feeling in the session. Whereas some days it might take me actually only 15 minutes to get to that point. So maybe I started trying that red boulder before, like, while I thought I was going to be hitting the peak, but it turns out, okay, no, I actually had a ways to go. So that's always something that I think is important to keep in mind while you're training, is that some days your body is just going to be kind of slow and lagging a bit in terms of like warming up and really hitting its physical peak in a session. And don't let that worry you. Just make sure that you keep that in mind. Some days it will just take longer than others. And it's a good idea to, if you're struggling on a boulder at the start of a session, stop trying it and come back later and see if you're feeling a bit better. And maybe you start to hit that peak of fitness in a session. And revisiting a boulder, you'll have a better chance on, just like I did on this red one in this session. So that was pretty fun. And it gave me confidence that maybe I could start to perform a little bit better in the rest of the session. So here we are revisiting this yellow boulder, also from the last, or like a couple episodes ago. Now, I did not think that I was going to revisit this boulder at all, because the way I was trying it in the first episode that we tried this boulder is from this position, I would go left hand again to the tiny crimp that's like blocked right above my head. And then I would try to pull off of that crimp to go up to this next one. But the left hand tiny blocked crimp is like super, super sharp. And I was like within 2 or 3 tries, I was already starting to get like a very painful split on my pointer finger. And so I said, if I revisit this boulder, I'm just going to be asking for like a nasty split. But as you can see, the MCNAMEES found a way to skip the crimp. And also here I am trying this cool jump move to the Gaston. I've never actually gotten a chance to try it because I didn't make it that far. And this move actually turned out to be quite my style. And it's also interesting. I think I've talked a bit about this in the past. I find my crimp strength isn't super strong compared to like other top level guys like the MCNAMEES or like Victor Beaudrand or whatnot. But my ability to like swing around on crimps is actually quite strong. and this is like a good example of that. And I find myself kind of taking these sort of crimp one arms from time to time, and I find that I feel quite strong in these sort of moves, but in terms of just static dead hanging power, I'm nowhere near like the top level guys. And so here I am making my way through the crux from the start, using the MCNAMEES like span beta to skip the tiny little crimp. That was pretty clutch, and that allowed me to actually try this boulder again, like I was saying. Because if we had to use the tiny little crimp, I think I wouldn't try it for fear of like splitting. So yeah, here I am finally getting like some redemption in the session. I'm able to produce like a nice high in terms of the session, you could say. Finally wasn't lagging behind the MCNAMEES, and like it's so like I know I've said this before, but these guys are like the perfect guys for me to train with. We always go tit for tat. Our strengths and weaknesses are so different that it's just a lot of fun to train with them, and you know, they're gonna kick my butt on some things and I'm not gonna feel bad because, you know, I know that I'm good at other things. And if you can like find people like that to train with, I think that's how you can maximize your sessions, which is a lot of fun. And so here I am like quickly putting another try on this boulder. You see that I can match the finish if I go up and set my foot like very intentionally on the left foothold. But from the bottom, I just found that I wasn't able to place my left foot well enough in order for it not to slip around by the time I'm trying to match the finish hold. And so I like just can't do that yellow boulder. Hopefully I'll get to try it again. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna be missing training with the MCNAMEES when they leave and go out west. These guys are just the perfect training partners and good friends as well, of course, and so that makes it even better. So to finish off the session, I joined Sabrina on this tricky comp style looking V8, and this move out left she was getting a little tripped up by, and I found some beta where we go and keep our right hand on the crimp to jump out to the second last, and then she started to try it and it worked a lot better for her, and then we got Kilter trying it as well. I don't think I got Sabrina's send on video, but she sent the boulder later, and we all got a nice team send of this boulder. And then yeah, this session at Bloc was super fun. Somehow I managed to rein it in pretty well and actually not really lose a lot of skin. I remained at the place I was at the start of the session, which was fine. My skin has never been good while I've been here, but it's definitely recovering a bit. And it's always important to not be losing skin on the first session of a 2-day block, so it was pretty handy. And so now we are going to move into our second session of the day, which I wanted to do at Bloc. I think it's been like a little while since we've been to Bloc. And the last time we were here was just for like a single session too. So it wasn't even like 2 sessions of bouldering. So Bloc was like the freshest gym in the area in terms of like new boulders. So I was super psyched to go to Bloc and have a whole bunch of boulders to try. And so I walked in the gym and just saw a bunch of epic looking stuff. So I start on that red boulder, which I felt like I was gonna send, and then had a little heel slip, and then found the willpower within me to control myself, not try the boulder again. I was very proud of myself for just walking away from the red and saying, there's so many boulders to try in the session. I don't need to get back on the red because of a little foot slip. So let's go try some other boulders. And then this black thing, you can see I am managing to flash. This was super exciting. This is a 3-star 6, and I've never been like close to flashing 3-star 6. at beta block. Usually they're going to take a lot of work. That being said, I sort of found a beta break, as you could see. I kind of piano matched a crimp in order to go up to like the better pinch. And I think that helped with the sequence a lot. And if I had tried to kind of go to the other bad pinch, it would have been a lot harder, I think. So I found a better way to do that and get like a really cool flash. And it was like super motivating, and it got me psyched. And then here we are taking down 6 2-star in a couple tries. This one was pretty tricky. And I guess I haven't mentioned yet, so I was feeling really good in this session. This is probably the strongest I've felt in a session in a while, which is why we're already off to like a good start. Let's say this was like an 8 out of 10, maybe even 8.5 out of 10. I was feeling like really strong in my fingers, like I could just squeeze and crimp anything really, really well. And I'd say that usually day 1, session 2 is where I expect to be feeling my strongest. I don't know why this is. I guess I just have a bit better of like warmth in my body from doing a session earlier in the day. And I also had like a rest day previous, so I'm still relatively fresh. So yeah, usually this session I feel strong, and this day was just like extra strong. This session, feeling super, super good, which is nice. I haven't, it's been a while since I've just straight out said I felt like super, super strong in this session. So this was like a really satisfying feeling. And it was nice too, because a lot of the boulders up at beta block, like the hard ones, were like physical style. There weren't too many like sticky boulders or techie jumpy stuff. So it was a really, really satisfying session because I could just take advantage of feeling super strong and try a bunch of like grip strength intensive boulders. So it was super sick. And here I am managing to put down another 3-star 6 in a couple tries. And this one was also satisfying to do because I have been really struggling with the power endurance boulders lately. And that one is obviously quite long and pumpy. By the time I was at those last 2 crimps, I was pumping out hard, and I had to just really want it for that last move. And I felt like a root climber. My hands were starting to open up a bit. And so we are moving on to another boulder here. This one is a cool, like paddly looking move. And I am trying to figure out this beginning sequence. And on this 3rd attempt here, I finally figure it out. And the sequence that I'm going to find on this boulder is actually going to lead me into today's tip of the day. So this one is actually, I'm kind of cheating the system a bit. I've used this tip of the day before, but it was a long, long time ago. And so I'm sure a lot of people have not heard of this one, heard me say this one, or seen that video. But anyway, the tip of the day is that in a lot of dynos, it can be like a running dyno to the side. It can be a dyno upwards. This is like kind of a dyno. It's not really a dyno. It's more of like a campus move, obviously. And depending on how you do it, you know, it could be a campus paddle or just a pure like campus 1-2 move. So this isn't really a dyno move, but the way that the sequence I use kind of turns it into a dyno. And this technique and tip of the day is mainly can be applied to dynos. So anyway, it is that mid dyno, you can look for like wall smears to boost your momentum or redirect it. So this one, the tip of the day, like the video I did this tip of the day in before, was like way back when we were in Germany, and we had like this crazy runny do across the wall at Studio Block where we like had to run a bunch of steps, hit another hold, paddle, and then do more running. And so when I like ran some steps, I hit this paddle hold, I kicked off the wall to like give me an extra boost in momentum. And I've done this a lot too in distance dynos where, you know, you just have your classic like couple jugs or something, good holds, 2 big feet, and you just got to do a big jump. We can jump and kick off the wall to either go upwards or like redirect our momentum to go to the left or right. And it's important to really pay attention to what you can do with the wall in terms of smearing to either boost or redirect your momentum during dynos or dynamic movement. And what you're going to see me do in this attempt is I wonder if this sequence was by design, actually. If this was the intended sequence by the setters, this is super cool and creative. And it felt quite natural and intuitive, actually, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was. But if this is an intended sequence, shout out to the Beta Block setters for being really smart, because this is cool. So I'm going to jump up to the sloper, obviously, and then I swing, and instead of just trying to campus to the next two holds, I kick off the wall to really push me to the right and ride into this left-hand hold, which is not like a juggy jug. So you really got to get it and like lean into it. And I can't just pull myself with enough force to really ride over to the right side and make this hold good. But when I kick off the wall to give me more power, it really helps me get into that position better. And this is a pretty fundamental technique that you can try to apply in any dynos. Use smearing off the wall as like a boost to redirect your momentum or just boost your power. So yeah, go try it out on dynos. I find this one is actually like, you can find this a lot. Like this isn't like a something that I don't find myself doing very often. I think this is a pretty potent one. So go give it a try. So yeah, shout out to this boulder for being super epic. I just like, when I kind of thought of this sequence, I said, whoa, this is probably going to be super cool. And it ends up working like the first time I try it too. So I think it is probably the intended sequence. And oh, you know, I should also mention, so we see there's like a zone tag on this hold, and there's some other zones throughout the wall, as well as some green tape. So I guess Beta Block is doing a bit of a comp simulation for like the Quebec youth team the next day after I'm doing the session. And so that's just what all this extra tape is about. They're kind of like, you know, marking boulders for different categories with zones and whatnot. So yeah, that's cool that Beta Block is putting this little event on for the Quebec team. And so I did actually decide to revisit this red boulder, even though I moved on from it at the beginning and said, okay, I think I could have probably finished the boulder without that heel slip. But since I was like doing so well in the session and getting like a lot of sends, I had more time to work with than I thought. So I said, okay, let me just go see if I can actually send that boulder. But you'll see that my those last two tries were actually quite a lot worse. And it's because my skin heated up a lot by the time I got back to that boulder. And the right hand sloper at the end, I could not stick to anymore, which was really fascinating actually. I felt like I felt really comfortable in that boulder at the beginning of the session, but when I came back to it after doing a bunch of other stuff, there was no chance. And it's crazy how the stick boulders, man, it really just depends on so many things. Like when you try the boulder, what other boulders you did before, how much skin you lost, etc. And so, yeah, I said, okay, I just can't do this boulder anymore now. So I decided to move on to the slab. And when I first looked at the slab, I kind of had no idea what to do. I didn't see an obvious looking sequence. I couldn't tell if maybe I'm supposed to go to the right or like go right hand up to the zone. But then when I like saw a sequence, it really made sense and it clicked. And this is like the creative setting that they do a lot of the times at Beta Block. And I often find myself in situations where I say, I kind of have no idea how to do this boulder, and then end up finding a really cool creative sequence that makes a lot of sense and works. And that's why I just say I think the setting at Beta Block is like really smart, because this happens a lot. And so yeah, the session is winding down. I found that I had a lot of strength and a lot of power in the session, but it did not last very long. So the morning session, we climbed for an hour and 15 minutes at Bloc, and this session was only like 52 minutes, I think, because I felt like a lot of power, but it depleted quite fast, which is interesting. And so this boulder here, I put a couple attempts on, ends up being our last boulder of the session. This one actually looks quite cool. I definitely was psyched to try this one, but this sort of like, you know, hands at shoulder height and then jumping up into a pressing mantle. That's exactly how I hurt my shoulder about a couple months ago at this point. And I haven't talked about it in a while because it's basically healed. I haven't really felt any shoulder pain in quite some time. I don't even think about it anymore. But even just on those couple attempts, when I was in that position, I had like a foot slip, right? Where all of a sudden I loaded my shoulders a bit more intensely than I wanted to. And I felt my left shoulder hurting like it did, like when it was injured, which kind of had me like, whoa, is this thing not gone yet? And so I had to stop trying that boulder, obviously, because it's not worth re-hurting an injury. Because that was like exactly the position I hurt it in, right? Is being in that position with my hands and then jumping into a press. So yeah, kind of unfortunate. But yeah, here we are, back on the Kilter board. This is the next day after our Rose Block Boulder session and our Beta Block session. We are here the next day for some Kilter board. So it's been a while since I've been on the Kilter board, and I know some people have been excited to see me back on it. And I have been excited to get back on it as well. But I like to kind of do more spray wall and campus right before comp season because I find it's a bit more applicable. And I like to do more Kilter board in kind of the off season. So under normal circumstances, I wouldn't be training Kilter board right now, but there is a pretty fun reason for the Kilter board session today. So I was meeting with Simon, who is the owner of Rose Block. Maddie and I were meeting with him today at Rose Block, and it is because we are joining the Rose Block Pro Team. So this is a pretty fun announcement, I think. That being said, I'm not sure if it's an announcement at this point, because I think we're going to film like kind of just a little promo video sort of thing, just announcing us being on the team. And I don't know if it would have come out before this video or not. I think it should have, so maybe not so much of an announcement, but yeah, on this day, we were just meeting with Simon and finalizing us joining the Rose Block Pro Team, which is super, super exciting. Like this gym, if you recall, the first time that I came here, that Maddie and I came here, was right before the Jackalope last summer, and it was our first visit here. We were just having a couple sessions to get on the Canada time zone. Obviously, we were coming from Germany, and we went to Rose Block, and I made a YouTube video called Canada's Coolest Bouldering Gym, ? And so, you know, obviously I'm going to be very excited to be joining the Rose Block team. I think it's pretty evident what I think of this gym, and it's not even just the gym, man. It's the whole community. The other athletes on the team are all super nice people, super strong. The setting crew, the staff, like the whole sort of Rose Block idea and the way that the gym is running, it's very unique in terms of like climbing gyms, and it feels like very special to be a part of. And it's kind of like a revolutionary bouldering gym, in my opinion, not just in Canada, but like in the world. And I say all these things being 100% genuine. From the first time I walked into the gym, I was hit with this wow factor in terms of aesthetics, setting, etc. And then when I got to know more of like the philosophies behind how the gym is operating, how much resources are putting into developing the setters and the athletes, I was kind of just blown away. And after our first visit to Rose Block, I think that was kind of like the inciting, like sort of the inception of the idea that we had to move to Montreal, or like the Montreal area. So Rose Block is not in Montreal. It's in a city called Longueuil, I think. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. But obviously it's not too far from Montreal. It's just a little drive over the bridge. And so I said to Maddie, you know, when we're done in Germany, this is the place to be. And now here we are, getting to the point where we're part of the pro team. Very, very exciting stuff. So you're going to be seeing a lot more of the flower on my back, which I am very excited to rep. And so, yeah, that kind of just brings me to the Kilter board session. We didn't want to like just go drive to a spray wall gym, so I said, you know what, Kilter board is a pretty good substitute for a spray wall session, and they have a nice Kilter board at Bloc. So here we are, just having a little Kilter session. And perhaps you have noticed a theme with this session as well. We have only been getting on some V10s. And actually, a fun little fact, I wish I did one more V10 in this session, because by the end of the session, I realized that I did 9 V10s, and I should have just done one frickin' more to do 10 V10s. That would have been pretty fun. But anyway, I was feeling destroyed in this session. When you have a session as strong feeling as the one I did at Bloc, it probably means you exerted like your muscles in your body just like really intensely, and you're gonna feel it the next day. And that's exactly what happened. I was probably feeling like a 5 during the session, actually. Like my joints were like crying throughout this whole session. My body was burning. All of these attempts, I have to try like really, really hard to get through these boulders. And the only reason I'm able to be like sending these things is because the Kilter board is just like really suits my style, I think. So that's like how I'm able to actually be sending boulders. But I was feeling like super destroyed. So for that reason, I said, okay, I have like some old Kilter projects kind of, you know, saved in my liked boulders that I have wanted to revisit for the next time I got on the Kilter board. But I could feel that there was like no way I should be trying limit projects. So I said, okay, let me see if I can just do as many, you know, moderates as possible. And so what I did is I just set the filter to V10, and I just started scrolling through them, like without even like thinking or looking at the boulders. I just like went to like the most popular V10s and just kept swiping from boulder to boulder, which was actually a really ended up being like a really, really fun session. And so this one we're doing here is the last boulder of the day. It was a very crazy effect that I felt for this climbing session, actually. Since all of these boulders felt like basically the exact same difficulty, maybe one or two are like kind of soft or easier than others, it was like crazy to feel how every boulder I did felt harder and harder and harder, because the fatigue was just like being compounded by like the exact same increment, you know. It was crazy. So this like send here I'm doing right now was so painful and desperate and limit, especially jumping to that right hand. I was just screaming, like my joints. Honestly, I was kind of worried that I was pushing it a little bit too far, because my joints were like, I usually don't get joint pain, but they were like really on fire during the session. But I was having like quite a lot of fun, so I was pushing it. And I wanted to send that last boulder to do all of the V10s in the session. But maybe not the smartest, honestly. So I was satisfied that I didn't actually have to call the session short. I was able to rep out a whole session. It was quite painful, but I got it done. And obviously that was a substitute for our spray wall session, which is also usually followed by up to 30 minutes of campusing. But obviously there's no chance I was going to campus. And so I decided to log my campus session as 0 minutes and 0 seconds. And yeah, the extra spray wall session and the extra campus session are always kind of optional after like the first session, right? So when we have a campus session followed by spray wall, any extra spray wall that I want to do is optional. And the important part is kind of like the campus session. And same when it gets flip-flopped. If we have campus followed by spray wall, the extra spray wall at the end is optional, and I can just kind of do as much as I want. And, you know, under normal circumstances, when I'm not feeling destroyed, I'm gonna want to do more training. It's always just fun. So that's kind of just the way I kind of write my training and the philosophy behind it. But today I did not have any extra gas in the tank to campus, so we just did our Kilter and our workout as well right after, which I actually was able to do like a pretty decent workout. It was more so my joints and my grip strength that were super destroyed, but my body was feeling kind of fine. And so now for hangboard, I was actually worried that I might have had to skip my hangboard based on how sore my joints were after that Kilter session. But I really didn't want to skip it because we didn't do our hangboard after our last campus session for the same reason, right? I was feeling so destroyed after our campusing with the MCNAMEES that I skipped my hangboard altogether. And I didn't want to do that again because I'm really trying to hit a peak for the North American Cups. And it's very important that I do all of my grip training how I'm supposed to do it. So I rested for a little bit longer than I usually do. I started the session around 4:30 when I usually start around 3. Gave myself a little extra rest, and it was just enough to do like a better quite a lot better hangboard than I thought. And pinches were not too bad as well. And so yeah, that wraps up quite action-packed couple days of training. And honestly, that's just how it goes here in the city. You know, it's always action-packed training, and that's why it's been just heaven living here. And to make things even better, now we're on the Rose Bloc team. And so this is like super, super exciting. Like I said, the Rose Bloc gym is just such a good resource for training for like athletes like us. Not only are the setters like psyched to work with the athletes like one-on-one and set the stuff that we need to work on, but the athletes themselves are all like friends, and we like to train together and session together. And it's just this crazy cool community. And it feels like I couldn't make it up better than the sort of situation that Maddie and I found ourselves in with these people, gyms, and you know, Rose Bloc's providing like great support to their athletes as well. And so this is just absolute heaven. Thanks to the Rose Bloc community and crew for bringing us in. We're psyched to be a part of the team and rep Rose Bloc going forward. So tomorrow's a rest day for me. I'm not going to try and guess where we're climbing in the next episode because I'm like a kid in a candy store and I can never make up my mind of where to go. So we'll just have to find out. Insert cat video outro here.